Hi, baby boomer fans. We are Jackie and Janine, the Pfeiffer sisters, and love to talk about the 1950s, inviting you to reminisce with us as we explore experiences of that decade. Grab your favorite malt or Green River. Make sure you are wide awake and get ready to be inspired about the 1950s. Welcome to the 1950s Fun Chat. Greetings, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another great history lesson from the 1950s and those surrounding decades in there. Jackie, this is going to be an exciting chat today. It's something a little more unique than what we've done in the past.
And they're all unique in their own way. So, hello, folks. We want you to pay attention to the screen below where you see the www.whilethewindmillwatch.com going across the bottom. Please go there for all sorts of information about the authors of the book above, who are your hosts, the vendors. We have about maybe 34 or so of them. We're so grateful to them throughout several states. Our activities where we will be signing books, and all the previous 1950s fun chats. And Janine, what is this number?
This number is number 221.
Got it. Yep, that's right. That's quite a few. In just over 4 years we've been doing this. Mm-hmm. So look up there and see the book, While the Windmill Watched, A Slice of Rural America in the 1950s. And you'll have take a little look at that white circle. You will be able to read what it says on the book. But for now, we're just going to get on with our program because we have lots to cover. And as a way of educating our Fun Chat audiences, we have explored the lives of persons, the locations of places, and the items, ideas, and organizations, and much more that were directly or indirectly involved with the decade of the 1950s. So today, our guest will focus on a place. As of December 2024, Dr. Margaret Fitzgerald is a retired professor, Dean and Provost Emeritus of North Dakota State University in Fargo, after serving the university for more than 36 years. Now here I want to insert that both of your hosts, Janine and I, are home economics graduates of NDSU. The topic upon which Margaret will focus, the Alba Bales Home Management House, holds a special place in our education. So Margaret's curiosity and passion for preserving the history of the Alba Bales Home Management House at NDSU developed in part from hearing stories of her mother and other North Dakota alums who lived in the house as undergraduate majors in home economics, and during her tenure as the Dean of College of Human Sciences and Education at NDSU. So as dean, she had the opportunity to help create the production of a documentary film called The Women of the Alba Bales House by Prairie Public Television, and a limited access museum at the Alba Bales House featuring exhibits on NDSU's history. Now, Margaret grew up in Dilworth, Minnesota, just over the river and through not too many woods from North Dakota to Minnesota. The daughter of a high school home economics teacher who eventually became an extension agent and the town postmaster. So Margaret earned her PhD from Iowa State University, her MS from Arizona State, and BS from NDSU. She is married and has 2 grown children and 2 orange tabby cats. And Margaret, we welcome you to the 1950s Fun Chat, and we're looking forward to hearing more what you have to say about this historical place in North Dakota.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me.
You're welcome. So please briefly tell us first of all, the history of home economics at NDSU.
Okay. Back in 1890, the North Dakota Agricultural College, as NDSU was referred to as a time, was founded and became the state's land-grant institution. And in the original law that established the NDAC, home economy was listed as a required course of study. So home economics has been part of the history since the very beginning of the university, and it's had different names over the years. It's been home economics. We've always also had the College of Human Development and Education and the College of Human Sciences and Education, but the human science part of it is definitely rooted in home economics. Now, at the time they were created, land-grant institutions were to educate the state's industrial class, and that's in opposition to the elite class, which was the group of people who typically had access to higher education. And land grants also educated the children of farmers. So they were designed to help people learn the practical activities of life. So for women, that involved homemaking and the domestic economy. So now we're going to fast forward to 1917 when the Smith-Hughes Act was passed, and that made the NDAC a vocational home economics training center for home economics teachers, and that created the need for what was called the practice house, or like a living laboratory, so young women could learn what it takes to manage a home effectively for that time period. So NDSU's house opened in 1923. Over the years, it was called the Practice House, it was called the Home Management House, and eventually it was rededicated to be called the Alba Bales House in 1954. That's also, you can see I'm turning my little cheat sheet over here just to make sure I get the dates right. 1954 was also the year that the new home economics building was built, which still stands today and is now called Evelyn Morrow Lebedeff Hall, named after another alum of our university. But anyway, in the early years of the Alba Bales House, the curriculum was focused on budgeting, meal prep, home maintenance and cleaning, and entertaining. In the later years, prior to its closure, there was more emphasis on learning about other cultures and inviting in guests who had broader worldviews to help educate the women who lived in the house. And the residents of the house also did demonstrations for homemakers in the Fargo community. Typically, there were about 5 to 8 women living in the house in any given quarter. SU was on quarters back then. Now we're on semesters. And there was a house mother who lived in the house. She had an apartment up on the 3rd floor, which is adorable. Even now, it's just really a nice place. So the house operated for 60 years, from 1923 until 1982. And 1,200 women lived in the house over time, over that 60-year period. So I'm going to show you a couple pictures here of the Alba Bales house. Excuse me. The first one, it's a little one. This one is from my mother's scrapbook that she made when she was a home ec major at NDSU in the 1930s. So this is what the house looked like in the 1930s. Nowadays, if you were to come to campus, you would see all kinds of buildings built up around it and a lot more landscaping, but this is what it looked like when she lived there. I'm sorry, I keep shaking the picture. And the other picture I think is really appropriate for today because we are getting our very first snowstorm in North Dakota this morning. This is a picture of the Alba Bales house in the winter.
Oh, yes.
I'm not sure what year this was taken, but you can see that more trees and shrubbery and it is still a very picturesque house on our campus. It looks much the same way now as it did then.
Margaret, can I show you a picture?
Mm-hmm.
This is a winter scene also when I and 5 other young ladies, all graduates, soon to be graduates, when we lived in the Alba Bales house.
Lovely.
It was memories there. We can talk about those later.
Margaret, who was Alba Bales?
Okay. Alba Bales was the first dean of home economics, and she became the dean when the Department of Home Economics turned into a school of home economics. Eventually it became a college, but at that time it became a school. She was a graduate of Columbia University, and she really championed issues that advanced the home economics program. She was a strong supporter of home economics research. And to this day, our university is known for research in the area of human sciences or home economics. She led the establishment of a nursery school laboratory so young women could learn about child development and child care in a supervised educational setting. She expanded the dietetics curriculum and the fashion merchandising curriculum. And it's my understanding that she was just a very strong believer in the practice house and learning through experience in that living laboratory. As an aside, she was part of what was known as the Purge at NDSU when the State Board of Administration terminated 7 staff members, and Alba Bales was one of them. They were terminated without cause. I'm not a historian, so I can't tell you a whole lot about it, but so she had a 3-year, let's call it a hiatus from NDSU, but then came back as dean. So the purge happened in 1937, but the reinstatement happened in the 1940s.
Do you suppose because of the depression that's why there was the purge?
You know, it could be. And maybe just saying we have to cut positions for budgetary reasons would be another option rather than saying nothing. But I wish I could tell you more about that time period, but I
would think that there would be fewer students during that year, those years.
That could be as well.
I'm going back to that beautiful home known as the Alba Bales Home Management House. Who were the architects that designed that home, and do you know what any requirements were?
I'm sorry, I don't know know that information.
Okay. Well, it always seemed like it just fit in with the campus, no matter what decade it was. That design.
Yeah, very classic, very consistent with the brick that was used at that time period on campus, and just.
Yeah. So, did you have anything more to say about what you were speaking, or so?
No, I'm good there.
Good for you. Okay. Well, then let's go to the broader picture here. Okay. So this 1950s was a decade of change for many reasons. So, how did the changes in the 50s affect home economics and the Alba Bales house?
Right. I often hear the 1950s referred to in terms of home economics as the decade of wives, mothers, and clean houses.
Yeah.
So there were very dramatic changes in the 1950s, and they happened for women extensively and somewhat abruptly. So during World War II, when people were away at war, when mostly men were away at war, women stepped up and went to work in the paid labor force. You know, for many, the first time ever. They worked in factories, they worked in laboratories, they were doing all kinds of things that men used to do when they were back in the States at their paid jobs. And you think of the era of the Rosie the Riveters that stepped up and did that kind of work to support the war effort. But then when the war ended, the men were coming home, veterans were coming home, they needed jobs, they needed their jobs back. And so women were encouraged to leave the labor force, very firmly encouraged to leave the paid labor force and return to the home and really care for their home and their family. So they came out of the labor force. When you think about the 1950s, it was also a decade where consumerism was promoted. The new appliances, the new home furnishings, the new things that were available to people. And there was also the baby boom. So now there were babies to care for and baby products to buy. And so this return to the home, the focus on the family, child psychology was also burgeoning in the 1950s. And so now women, in addition to cooking and sewing, could concentrate on healthy relationships in the family and raising their children and things like that. So there was that focus then on, maintaining the perfect home and the ideal happy family. I just think of the 1950s Dior dress with the fitted bodice and the full skirt, and it just creates such an image.
Women had waistlines, didn't they?
So tiny.
What's the deal? And they had aprons over those dresses.
The housewives did, but interestingly, in the 1950s, there was a growth in what we call home economists in business, or business home economists, who would be hired by the trade associations, like the Dairy Council or the Cattle Men's Council, or I got that wrong, but whatever the cattle one was called at the time. And so they would represent products and develop recipes using those products, and would travel around and teach homemakers about them. They also worked for power companies, for example, in electric companies and gas companies. I think Janine maybe has a little experience with that. And they were not allowed to wear aprons. They were actually, for the most part, very snappy, fashion-forward dressers. And other home economists looked at them, with envy to some degree, because they had relatively high salaries, they had prestigious positions, they were dressed to the nines wherever they went, and so that created another employment opportunity for home economists who wanted to stay active in the profession besides being a home ec teacher or being an extension agent.
When we have been talking prior to recording, you had mentioned about a lot of these young college co-eds who were raised on the farm and were in the home economics program, but really had no experiences that lent themselves to being forward thinking in entertaining, or maybe having the necessary appointments on hand in the home, silver, flatware, the good bone china, the lovely linens, and that type of thing. And yet there was a purpose in that for the home management house.
Exactly. For many of the women coming off the farm where they were raised, over time, think about when rural water came into being and rural electricity came in. So they come to campus to the state of the art house with the most modern appliance, the best design, the high quality china and crystal, and they are expected to learn how to entertain. So let me show you a couple pictures that would illustrate that. And I'm not sure the era on this. This is from a publication that NDSU did several years ago that's available electronically through the archives. But there you see them setting up for some kind of event, and there's candles on the table and crystal candlesticks and china on the table, and they were very good quality products that were in the Alba Bales house. They
do you know if many of those appointments in the house were donated or were they purchased?
I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that question as well.
Okay. That's fine.
Are these items still in the house?
They are not. Many of them went to the archives. Oh, here's a couple more that are very indicative of what it was like.
And those men, I remember we invited certain people, professors and the president of the university at that time, when we had our grand finale presentation, whatever we did there.
Yes, it was entertaining was part of the curriculum, and you were expected to invite and entertain people. So they were often professors. You mentioned the president of the university. I've seen pictures with lots of military officers dining. I remember one of our alums who was interviewed for the Alba Bales video that you mentioned previously, the documentary. She said, after I finished the home management house, I felt like I could entertain the president.
Right.
The expectations were so very high.
Yeah.
With the closure of the house, it became difficult to use the house for many other things at the university once it closed because it was not ADA compliant.
Sure.
So it's been modified now. So the first floor is ADA compliant in terms of access and an appropriate bathroom, ADA bathroom. The only bathroom in the house was on the second floor when it was open. And I think the house mother maybe had one too, but I'm not positive of that. And then to put an elevator in to get to the second, third floors would be prohibitive, and to put a fire escape in would be incredibly expensive. So for a long time, the university used it just accessing that first floor, but now it's not being used anymore. So the beautiful crystal and china and linens and those products either went to the archives or to the president's house. It's my understanding.
Now, the archives means that it's in storage somewhere?
Yes.
Do you know, Margaret, if NDSU was alone in its creation of a home economics living laboratory, such as a home management house?
Not at all. We were not the only ones.
Okay.
You would find practice houses on, I believe, every land grant university in the country. NDSU might have been one of the first, if not the first. And this is where I wish I was a historian so I could tell you exactly. And on larger campuses, there might have been more than one. I think University of Virginia, for example, had 4.
Oh my. Lucky them.
Yeah, so many, a smaller land grant like NDSU would have had the one. And on some campuses, they've been turned into other things. Yeah, I have Women and Gender Studies Center, for example, or a museum that people can visit to look at university materials in other cases. And unfortunately, I think it's unfortunate they've burned down. So,
to me, it's in thinking of my personal life and time frame, when we were growing up, we were fortunate that Mom did have good china and sterling silver and crystal goblets. And when we had company, we did use those. That was kind of a requirement, and along with having good manners at the same time. And so to extend the knowledge of using those beautiful appointments for entertaining was part of I came to NDSU with that knowledge, and then having an experience at the home management house heightened it and helped me even improve with that. And now, as a 75-year-old woman, I have given my bone china and my crystal to our daughters, who I think they're probably just going to keep it in storage and pass it on to the next person. Yeah. I guess it's the way my life has developed, in that I'm satisfied now to be able to entertain and more casually than what would have been expected of me back in that era.
Right. And I remember growing up when my mom and my aunts entertained, they would do the big family Christmases with the good china and the good silver and the sterling coffee pot. They would really do it up. It was an incredible amount of work for them, but it was also a time of such graciousness and hospitality, and just the whole being expected to carry on conversation at the dinner table and use good manners. And I'm actually sitting in front of one of my mother's sets of china and her Swedish crystal, one of her sets of crystal. But I had to laugh when I was reading through some of the materials on the home management house, and there was a list of rules from the house in 1965, and it said, be very careful with the white Arsberg china because it chips very easily. I laughed because we now have that white Arsberg china at the lake cabin, and we put it in the dishwasher all the time. But I think they're meaning the cups and saucers, which we don't use, and I bet they would chip.
Sure.
But the white Arsberg is held up like an iron horse in terms of
Was the home management course offered every quarter or just certain quarters of the year?
It was offered fall and spring quarters. Well, back then there were 3, so I don't know. Fall, winter, spring quarters, I believe. And then sometimes there was student teaching associated with it, as I understand it. But again, I'm not sure how it may have changed through the years and as enrollments changed. And then they split some of the time with student teaching. But back in the height of the home management house, home economics education was an incredibly large program at NDSU. And so they had, if you can only have 5 to 8 women in the house at a time,
Yeah, we only
you
have
have to keep them rotating through.
Yes, right.
At what time was the requirement of living in the house discontinued?
I actually probably could tell you from my timeline here that I have in front of me. In 1982.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it went on for quite a while.
Okay.
And that's when the laboratory and home management class replaced the live-in experience at the Alba Bales house. So I was an undergrad at that time. I was in child development, family relations. So living in the home management house would not have been a requirement for that curriculum, but I did a minor in home management, family economics. So I had to take the class that replaced the practice house called Laboratory and Home Management, taught by Dr. Virginia Hastoon, who was lovely. Yes. I adored her.
I know, we had her too.
Both of you know who knows her. Yes. And I remember the most difficult assignment in her class was you had to design a kitchen according to kitchen design standards, and then you had to construct that kitchen with cardboard boxes that had all the appropriate sizes for a refrigerator and a dishwasher and an oven. And I thought I was going to fail the class because when she came in to review my kitchen, my dishwasher door touched my oven door when they opened it. That was a big faux pas. I didn't fail. I actually got an A in the class, but to this day, I am just a nut about kitchen design and making sure there's enough space next to the stove and the work triangle is the right size. And
and tell us, the young ladies who lived in the home management house, what were their responsibilities then, other than entertaining?
Yeah, I will read a little quote from the 1950s because I thought this was appropriate. It's from Jane Nissen, who is one of our lovely alums, and I still see her fairly frequently. And she says, it was all done as a group arrangement. Everyone had their job assigned for the week. Someone was a cook, someone was a grocery buyer, and someone did laundry for the week. And then you had classes too. It was very well organized. And here is a picture in her quote.
Look at those sweet aprons.
As I have my finger. Yeah. So that shows them doing the housework. I see one woman cleaning the windows down there. And I've heard that the house mother was various house mothers over time were very strict about making sure those windows were completely spotless. So.
Wonder what their trick was. I'd like to know that.
Vinegar, water, and double wipe.
Oh, okay.
This
Vinegar, water, Dawn, hot water.
Oh, okay. That's a good idea too.
Were the laundry facilities in the basement then?
The laundry facilities were in the basement.
Okay.
And I'm smiling for 2 reasons. The first is I heard a very scandalous story about the laundry area. One young woman was caught doing her boyfriend's laundry down in the laundry room. And the house mother was very upset because it meant she touched his underwear.
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she probably had touched more than that. Tired of that.
Now. Next thing, what's the next smile?
And the second smile is the House rules in 1965 said no smoking except in the basement.
Oh, fumes would go up.
Yes. Yes.
So,
And was there a dishwasher in the, an automatic dishwasher in the home management house?
I don't, I'm not sure if there was at the end or not. And I've been in that kitchen several times and honestly just don't remember seeing whether there was or not.
Electric washer and dryer, automatic
Eventually,
washer?
yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
How would, if you started out, if the house was equipped with a clothesline in the basement and a wringer washer, what would have determined when the move was changed to update?
I think it was probably the availability of the technology and the budget of the department or college at the time. So when things like dishwashers and automatic washing machines and things came into fashion, I do think they did try to add that technology to the house because the idea was the practice house was always on the forefront of the technology. So I'm guessing there probably was a dishwasher that was installed when they became popular. But again, a lot of the women coming in had never used, when we got electric washers and dryers, they had never used those appliances until they got into the practice house.
I'm wondering too, when, oh shucks, I lost my train of thought. I'm wondering too.
Also, yeah.
It'll come to me. Okay.
Well, and a lot of the women then who lived in the house went out and had to demonstrate those appliances to other women. So they not only worked for the manufacturing companies that made them, like Whirlpool and Maytag, they used them themselves, but they also rep them to other women and taught how to use them. I read something I thought was really interesting too, which during World War II, when the men were off at war and women had to move into factories, they really liked the Iowa State University graduates because they were so knowledgeable about electricity and things and could take things apart and put it back together. So I think they really got trained well at ISU. Of course, I'm a little biased. But.
Would companies, particularly those in, for instance, the field of electricity and gas, and who hired home economists, would they look to those applicants for their job as those who had more experience, such as in a practice house, or were they just willing to teach them themselves?
I think in certain decades, they did look for women who had experience in the practice house because, some of these concepts were very foreign to households or homemakers at the time. And so they wanted women who understood what they were talking about, who were able to teach other people how to use these materials. Back in later years, I'm not sure how they decided who to hire. I believe, Janine, you worked for Otter Tail Power Company for a while, if I remember correctly. Do you remember your interview and hiring and expectations? Or
no, not really. For me, it was more recipe testing, developing recipes, and then doing on-air work with television. And food demonstrating for groups of women.
Okay.
Anything to promote the use of electrical appliances in the kitchen. That was pretty much what our focus was. I know what I was going to ask you. Back in the 1950s, there was still probably 100% cotton in fabrics. We might not have been to the wash and wear, or certainly there weren't polyesters yet. But at that time, of course, cottons would have to be ironed or pressed. Do you know how that training process went as fabrics developed with more ease of care, that how that was taught in the house?
It was definitely part of the curriculum, and I have seen pictures of women ironing in the basement down in the laundry room with all those cotton sheets and pillowcases. And I'm guessing they ironed their dish towels as well. And then, home economics evolved so much over time as products developed, whether it was the fabrics that you're referring to, where all of a sudden you have the permanent press and the no iron fabrics. But food products changed. You mentioned developing recipes. A lot of home economists did that kind of work, particularly as new convenience foods came out and they needed to figure out what homemakers would use and what they would like. In the very early days, they also had to figure out what temperature to bake things on when people all of a sudden had better ovens than they had out in the
with thermostats.
With thermostats, yes.
You know, Margaret, how well I have Mom's old cook stove here, and it's in perfect shape. And I remember asking her once how she knew what 350 degrees was in that oven. And she said, well, I stuck my arm in, opened the door and stuck my arm in, and if I could hold it for 7 seconds, it was 350 degrees. So think of the talent. The women who had those kinds of appliances had to have. And
how did she figure that out?
Industrious, I guess. I don't know.
She didn't burn her arm trying to figure that out.
This was a wood burning, coal burning stove,
cob burning, yes.
Yeah. And even sewing clothing, they didn't have standardized pattern sizes for many, many years, as we do now, relatively standardized sizes. I'm sorry, what were you going to say? I didn't mean to interrupt.
It was, I don't remember Mom having used that stove. I was too little, but perhaps she went around with singed hair on that right arm quite a bit from having checked the oven. And really, probably after time, you just know that when you start the fire and it goes for so long and you haven't opened the oven door that it's ready to receive what you want to bake.
Yeah. One of the things that changed, and that is the terms for the woman, the little woman of the house. In the 1950s, they were housewives. And if you think about it, who wanted to be married to the house? Well, they were married to the house, in essence, because that was their partner, sort of, to present to the breadwinner who brought home the bacon, that kind of, thing. So then we've now gone to homemaker, which, and of course, that we heard that in the 50s too, but I think it was at the end of the 50s. Otherwise, they were wives of the house.
Well, and think of what they wore. Like our mother didn't. She was a farm wife. But many women wore dresses all the time in their homes. Grandma did, when she lived in Bismarck. They had house dresses. But now it's totally different. And even when I was at NDSU, and you, Jackie, were at NDSU, it was a requirement when we were in a field of home economics to wear dresses.
I don't think that changed. Did that change in the late 60s? Jackie, were you there when it changed, or were you still required to wear skirts when you were there?
I can't recall. I do remember my first wool slacks, though. I made them. They were dress slacks,
And I bet they fit perfectly because they were expected to.
Well, who didn't? If you were a college co-ed, especially if you were in a sorority, who didn't want to wear the short skirts and the tall snow boots and these short suede jackets that they had no capacity to keep you warm whatsoever? But boy, were you cute going across campus.
That's right. I remember that. I had a class. I lived in a house and then walked all the way across to Morrill Hall for a class, and my knees were flaming red because of that walk in the North Dakota wind and snow.
But you were a campus cutie.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Vanity before anything here.
That's right. But that changed too as the decades wore on. I was at NDSU from the fall of '68 and graduated in spring of '72, and I do recall being wearing slacks, pants probably when I was a junior and senior. And I don't know if it was because at that time, animal science was one of my minors, and I just wore that kind of attire to those classes and then went on to whatever other classes I had. But perhaps that's when that rule started to be more lax in the College of Home Economics.
That could be.
Yeah.
So it was nice to be able to wear slacks, especially when you're in that wind and snow.
Oh, so cold, so cold.
Yes.
So did you participate, if I might ask, in Little International? Did you make something with wool and lead your sheep?
Well, we didn't have ladies lead.
A former queen over there.
Okay.
Yes. I showed shorthorn cattle in competition, and then I was in Saddle and Sirloin Club, and I had been selected as the Little International Queen one year.
Oh,
It was really sweet. I think that was the first time that the membership of the organization selected a young lady from within the group to be their queen, because prior to that, there just weren't that many young women in Saddle and Sirloin Club.
Mm-hmm. And you were the first woman on the judging team, as I recall.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it was. It was fun. Well, it was especially fun because that's how I met my husband.
Of another college.
Yes. So anyway, back to the home management house. How was it finally decided that the home management house would close on the campus?
Mm-hmm. I think it was a difficult decision at the time, but things had changed so much for women, with women's roles and the kinds of work they wanted to do. The thought of living in a house with other women was not that appealing to them for a semester. Many wanted to live in sorority houses or apartments, or were married and chose other things. I think it was also expensive to run the home management house. You not only have to maintain the house, but with only 8 girls in there at a time, it's a pretty expensive laboratory, relatively speaking, to do that kind of work. And so eventually it just didn't seem feasible to have it anymore. And other campuses were phasing theirs out too. We were maybe one of the later ones to phase out, I'm guessing. But again, that's just conjecture on my part.
I'm assuming that when the young women planned for their meals or whatever supplies they needed for laundering or cleaning, that they had to adhere to a budget.
Yes. Yes, they did. And that was one of my mother's most popular stories, is she got the highest budget amount for her meal. And, farm girl from Great Bend, North Dakota, she had no idea how to put together this very expensive meal and spend all that money, but she did it. So, and some got the frugal budget, some got the more extreme budget, and thinking about how to feed people for a week. I mean, I didn't do that until I had children, got married and had children, figure out the family grocery budget.
Are there any other stories that you can think of? You told us 3 now. Are you just interesting things besides the basement? What went on there?
Well, I can tell you the scandalous stories if you'd like me to tell.
You betcha.
A little racier than the underwear story.
No names.
No names. And honestly, I don't know the names of the people who were involved. There are 2 stories that I hear fairly commonly, and they're about 2 different house mothers who had boyfriends. And the one story I hear is the house mother who was dating a coach who could somehow scale the wall of the Alba Bales house to visit her 3rd floor apartment without having to go through the front door or the back door. Again, I don't know if they're true, but I've heard it numerous times from numerous people.
I wonder who did his laundry.
And then I have also heard of another house mother who had a boyfriend who would arrive in a military uniform. So I don't know if he was in, ROTC at NDSU or some other form of military, but he would come in through the door. So The young women, I think, did a lot of gossiping about these boyfriends in the house. And,
Yes. Were the young women who lived there, they were allowed to have young men visit them?
They often invited men in as company. And so if you were a married woman, for example, when you were in college, you didn't have to live in the house, but your husband may have, you would come to do certain things like the entertaining, and then your husband may have been a guest or a guinea pig at the meals. So yeah, the guests were often males.
Okay.
And they would come in socially, they would come in too. I think I have a nice picture of a young couple here.
Was there proper introductions, training given when you were?
Oh yes. Everything that happened in the home management house was to be very proper of how you introduce people and how you entertain them while you're waiting to leave for the dance or things like that. So yes, very
good.
How neat.
Yes, fun.
Margaret, this has been so refreshing. I think particularly so because Jackie and I lived it, but not in the 50s, but lived that opportunity provided by the Alba Bales Home Management House on the campus of NDSU. It was a great experience, and we're so grateful that you joined us and could give us some history of that house. And we hope that too, that this is refreshing to perhaps some other ladies who lived there and can recall those I remember when experiences.
So thank you very much, viewers. And we thank you, Margaret, for this time. And friends, tell your friends and even your relatives about this 1950s fun chat. So until next time, toodaloo.
Bye-bye.